Hello, welcome to the ABC of CBD. My name's Oliver Mammon. Hopefully we'll be joined by Russ Kane soon, but he's having some technical difficulties. Today is our first episode on our segment on patients. We're going to be focusing on patients in the UK supply market, so the UK supply chain, how patients are actually getting access to the medicinal cannabis which they need. And that's basically our topic over the next 10 weeks. Over the last 10 weeks, we focused on growing and providing extracts to the UK market. We've spoken to a lot of farm owners and a lot of distributors and brokers who have made it their job over the last 5 years to provide the UK with consistent, compliant CBD extracts. And also we've spoken to some farms who are building and preparing for a medicinal green wave, which is coming over, well, started and it's starting to grow and build in the UK. Before I get on with my introduction, we're going to have a little quick word from our sponsors, and then I'll introduce our guest and we can get on with the show. I'm sure you've heard before that good quality CBD needs to be really, really expensive. This is the new view of CBD. A product created by users for users. A product at an affordable price, available everywhere, at any time, at the simple click of a button. Just CBD and MCT oil. No additives, no preservatives, and no flavor.
Come on, put us in.
Subscription-based service. The cleanest possible CBD delivered to your door for the lowest possible price. Your product, your rights for the lowest possible price. What's up, Russ?
This is just not work. Nothing's working here.
Working.
Nothing. I'm so sorry. Nothing is working here, man.
It's working. We can hear you. We can see you.
Well, I'm not up. So if our lovely...
Okay, so we've just lost Russ for the second time. So I'm going to give my introduction. This week's episode is called From People to Patients. A few weeks ago, we met Alex Frey from GLO Organics, the farm based in the Isle of Man with plans of production and distribution of cannabinoids for the blossoming UK cannabis market. With a focus on medical cannabis distribution and fulfillment, GLO have been working alongside the Isle of Man government and community, inspiring the former tourist, mining and agricultural hub to be well positioned for an imminent green revolution. The founding team at GLO, at GLO Organics, comprises of three people. You have Alex Frey, who we met a few weeks ago. You have a dude called Charlie Price, who's this incredible botanist who we will meet in the coming future. And our very special guest today, who is Mr. Charlie Lyons. All three of these boys add a little something different to the mix. As we heard from Alex, he nurtures the fragile relationship between the governments that create the rules, the police who enforce the rules, and patients who will have to follow these rules in order to help create a system from the ground up which thinks about the patients who need the system. Okay? One criticism of the UK cannabis market is that it's very limited. The products available are limited and the application options are limited. In the UK, patients are allowed to vape and orally consume only. No other forms of consumption are legally permitted. So it makes it reduces access to cannabinoid products dramatically when you're only allowed flowers to vape and tinctures to drop. And the tinctures are very generic, and so are the flowers. As we've seen over recent weeks, and as we'll see over the coming few weeks, patients have very personal journeys in this cannabis space. And access is still very relatively limited. It's becoming better, but it's still very hard. And it's not really possible to get those personal, specific, unique blends which people need. You know, what I've found is that as a patient, what I really need is very different to everyone else. And, you know, my personal blends, I can't go and find those off the shelf, even with a medicinal prescription in the UK. Everything's very much generic, or, you know, like one fix all, which is kind of not the right mentality. So, for example, a 1 to 2 mathematically accurate CBD to THC suppository, which is a 300 milligram total, it's impossible to legally find on the UK market. So let's say you suffer from sciatic issues and CBD drops and smoking doesn't agree with you. You can't actually find a product to directly target the cannabinoid receptors, which you need them to target. So it kind of it creates this limitation for end users in the UK market currently. Things might change. We're still a new market. We've only been around for a couple of years. When we spoke to Dr. Carrillo, Dr. Sandra Carrillo from Colombia, we spoke to her maybe, I think, 2 months ago, 3 months ago. She discussed how all patient formulations in Colombia and in Panama are more unique and more personal. So no one patient gets the same product as another patient, and the laboratory who's formulating these cannabinoid concoctions are doing unique formulations for every single patient. Other communities around the world, so for example, America and Israel, they operate completely different. America has been born out of a medicinal system. Now there's a recreational system. There's a lot more choice, a lot more understanding, a lot more education, which enables end users to have more access in general. Israel has a very much a strict medicinal system. They focus mainly on cannabis flower, but there's a breadth of other products which are now available on the open market. Every country has its own rules and guidelines and access methods. And in the UK, we're still learning, we're still growing, and access is still limited. Charlie's involvement in this industry is nothing short of emotional and empathetic. His role at Grow Lab Organics is very much patient-focused, it's people-focused. He wants to bring the company closer to the patients. That's his plan, as he'll tell you more about it. Focusing on application technologies, focusing on the most practical and the most personal ways cannabis can work for an end user, and trying to create this bridge between the medicinal system, which has been created for the end users, and the end users themselves. And through research and through trying to understand patients, he's adding this additional element to Grow Lab Organics I haven't seen at another UK-based cannabinoid manufacturer, something which is really designed for the people. So patients are the most important thing in this industry. I mean, my first ever speech at the Hemp and CBD Expo in March 2019, my entire speech was focused on the patients and about how every single seller in that room has to think about the end users of their products, because that's all that matters. You know, without those end users, without those patients out there buying these products which we're creating, there's no reason for us to create these products. You know, they create the demand, we create the supply. Without the demand, there's no supply. Welcome, Russ, for the fourth time, which is
I'm
great.
giving up here, man. I'm on the verge of totally giving up.
I gave a great introduction.
Trying to contact the producer. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if you can see me. I have no idea if you can hear me.
I can see you. I can hear you.
I've got nothing on my screen. I've got absolutely nothing. So let's just continue. I'm so sorry. Have you?
And he's gone again. This is mental. Okay, let's bring on our guest, Charlie, and let's get on with the show.
Hey Ollie, how's it going?
Yeah, good. So, I'm sure you've seen the technical difficulties over the last 7 minutes of introduction.
I was absolutely loving the way you were navigating the technical difficulties that were being thrown your way, with Russ popping up and then vanishing every couple of minutes. It was like full storm after full storm. I'm wondering if I've done something wrong, and Russ has just already decided that he's had enough of me before I've even said anything.
That's it. He met you. He's like, all right, he's wearing a hat. I don't want anything to do with him. He's wearing a cap. He's one of them. Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Charlie. I really appreciate this.
My complete and utter pleasure.
Yeah, like it really means a lot. And like I said, we met your incredible business partner a few weeks ago. He seems to have the short end of the stick, you could say, having to navigate basically the worst relationships in the world. You know, you're dealing with Home Office, dealing with government, dealing with patients. It's really not hard. It's really, really hard. It's really not easy. It's not something I would wish upon my worst enemy. But he handles it really, really well. And to be honest with you, the foundation you guys have built on the Isle of Man, I can't wait to see what you guys start pumping out of there. I think it's going to be incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing. We're really incredibly lucky to have Alex in place over there. He's a master of diplomacy, navigating some very treacherous corridors of power. Charlie Price, who I know you're going to speak to in a few weeks, is also fantastic in those arenas as well. So it's certainly been a journey so far that's pushed us all to the limits of what's going on, because this is frontier stuff, right? There isn't any precedent for what we're doing, what this industry is trying to become. We are just doing our level best to be good custodians and stewards of the plant, and putting our best foot forward as we try to build a diverse, inclusive and exciting industry on not only just the Isle of Man, but in Europe.
You just said something super interesting. You know, like there's no rule book. You didn't use the word rule book, but there is no rule book. There is no rule book for this industry. And what happens is you have a couple of people, they try and give their advice from like the other businesses they've been in. So, you know, successful men will look at you and they'll be like, you know, especially over the last 5 years, I've had a lot of this, You could call it mentoring guidance from people who are like, oh, you're trying something new. Let me try and help you. And the advice which people give, no matter how valuable it is to every other industry on the planet, it means nothing here because there are no rules. So people are always like, yeah, always be prepared. Do you know what I mean? Like one of those things, always be prepared, try and look a bit to the future and like see where other companies have failed. Hasn't happened because there have been no other companies to compare ourselves to. And it's kind of incredible that, you know, we're, like you said, we're custodians of this market. But, you know, you're taking care of a market which you don't really know what it's supposed to look like. So it's like you're trying to keep something clean, but you don't really know what clean is. Do you understand what I mean?
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there's a couple of points to really dissect in that. One is there isn't a rule book. We certainly don't think of it in that way. Obviously, there is precedent from North America with a lot of excellent businesses, both in Canada and the US, who have done some really incredible things, really sophisticated branding, some beautiful products and great companies, but they've also made a lot of mistakes or things that I just don't think we should necessarily import just because they've been done before. And, you know, they have made some mistakes, but I do see sort of mistakes continuing to be made. And we're very keen to kind of walk our own path, look to what is going on around the world, take inspiration from those businesses, but also really kind of, you know, march to our own rhythm and set our own sort of systems in place. You know, Europe's going to be the biggest market over the next 5 years for cannabis, and there's a really established culture here. And only to your other point, you know, while there isn't a rule book and a kind of set of examples, there is still a really kind of deep black market which has got some incredible products and incredible service. And, you know, a lot of the time when people say drug dealer, they immediately think of a bad person or people. The reality is, as you know, a lot of the time it's people that are caregivers and, you know, genuinely people that are looking out for each other. So there's a lot to be learned from the black market.
The black market, I've retermed the black market. I call it hidden knowledge because it's a much nicer terminology, and you have this wealth of hidden knowledge which has basically been accumulated over the last 25 years, whilst America's been able to operate in the limelight and been able to operate with basically, you know, the bells and whistles of California and Hollywood flashing around the cannabis world, basically saying, look at me, pay for me, invest in me. You know, England and other countries in Europe have very much had to, like you say, operate in the black. And just because they've had to operate in the black doesn't necessarily mean that their efforts have been, more illegal. Do you know what I mean? Like the illegality of their efforts needs to kind of be forgotten about. And it's just the effort itself and the understanding itself, which needs to be, you know, almost adopted by the general public and by the medicinal practices and stuff. But I'm a big fan of all of that information which exists in the, you want to call it the sub layers, the subculture of the cannabis industry. The foundation is, I think, even the better word. The subculture is a great word, but that is the foundation, the base, the structure of the cannabis industry is all of this hidden knowledge which has been hidden. So I completely agree with you about the grassroots section. So let me get straight into the show. I've got like maybe 50 questions I want to ask you, and I know that you've got a whole bunch of stuff you want to discuss with me. And Russ's technical issues have
he might re-emerge like a phoenix.
Russ is going to re-emerge, and he is going to be pissed off.
Like there timing.
We go.
Well, I got to tell you something, boys. I have punched my laptop so hard. I just punched it. So I'm back on my phone. I hate technology, but there we are. Back on my phone. So I hope you can see me, and I hope you can hear me. My apologies. These are the gremlins, most of which is down to British Telecom because their service is absolutely appalling. Welcome to our special guest. I'm Russ Kane, what's left of him. Ollie, you've been doing a grand job. My apologies to everybody. It's just so infuriating.
Is it defamatory to turn around and say that British Telecom is the worst company in the world? Is that a defamatory statement?
I didn't say it's the worst company in the world. What
but I'm asking, is it?
Their internet speed in central London, where I am, is a disgrace.
Well, I'm happy if anyone wants to write a letter of complaint.
I've spoken to the CEO. I've spoken to the PA of the CEO. There's nothing they can do. So as soon as I can dump British Telecom, trust me, I will. I've interrupted our very excellent guest. My apologies.
So let's get
on.
Russ. So Charlie, as an already successful business owner, okay, because this is one thing, because I met you maybe 2-3 years ago, and when I got introduced to you, you were, starting on this journey and whatever. And one thing I learned straight away is you're not a nobody who's trying to make it in this world. You're already a successful business owner. What made you decide to band together with your friends of old in order to kind of progress down this route of trying to make a difference in this world of cannabis?
Well, I think it's an important point actually between the three of us, that we are probably not the conventional teams that get formed to lead cannabis businesses. A lot of what we see at the moment is a lot of sort of financial background or legal background type people, men and women coming together to sort of set up cannabis businesses and kind of walk into this new frontier. Charlie is a scientist by trade, but he is a great creative thinker, has loads and loads of amazing ideas to set up lots of different successful businesses that are, he's very entrepreneurial by his nature. And Alex, you obviously had him on the other week. He does tread that kind of more the path which is more regulatory, and he's got his finance background. But Alex is a very spiritual guy with some amazing views, ideas, and he's sort of riddled with creativity. And my background is actually, the last 20 years I've been working in the creative industry. So the first half of my kind of professional career was in more classic advertising. So working across different markets globally, from Europe to the Middle East to sort of Asia into the States, with brands like Nike and DHL and Nickelodeon, doing lots and lots of different creative work across TV.
Love Nickelodeon.
Yeah, me too.
Create like
yeah, I mean, amazing
Which
content.
side of the advertising were you on? Were you on the account side or the creative side?
Yeah, I sort of straddled the two, Russ. So I kind of I guess you would probably call me a creative suit in the old terms. Someone who was responsible for the clients and the commercial side of things, but I was always like literally badgering my creative directors to death with like ideas, and we should do this, we need to change this treatment, this, that, and the other. So that was the sort of first half. And then the last decade I've spent, I co-founded a design and technology company called Beyond, where we enjoyed, fantastic relationships, 10-year relationship with Google, Apple, Facebook, Snapchat, more recent times, TikTok, building all manner of digital products and services for these companies. So very much design led, had a big team of engineers, doing lots and lots of creative stuff with everything from, websites and mobile technology through to virtual reality and 3D and all this kind of like great emerging tech. And we also did a lot of stuff with, businesses like Novartis. And on the face of it, I always felt that they were, highly regulated, probably big pharma, pretty stuffy on the face of it. But ultimately, when you get into some of this stuff, we were doing a lot of work with a heart failure product and some cancer stuff. And it's just unbelievably humbling when you listen to patients' stories about what people have to go through in life. And many people who are so less fortunate than us and others are just, amazing beacons of hope and inspiration for humanity.
When it comes to health, to health, and someone can inspire you with a story of health, I mean, it's more inspiring than any story out there. And the same way that, like when someone brings you a story of sadness, when it comes to health, it's sadder than any story out there. I don't know when I don't know what it is, but I mean, like I said, especially in today's world, health means more than anything. And there's this incredible emotional attachment to a stranger's pain, which you don't have with a stranger's anything else. Do you understand what I mean? And it's that sort of
you can empathize immediately. You might have never met someone before.
A lot of that in this industry.
Yeah, and so leaning into that and seeing how technology can play just such an amazing role in sort of helping people that are suffering, whether that's using kind of social networks to connect them to people with similar conditions where they don't ever feel like they're truly alone. Because, while you can say I'm suffering with this very rare disease, I've got a good support network around me. Unless you've got people around you that are going through the same thing, why am I waking up in the middle of the night feeling like this? Why am I doing that? Why am I doing the other? Unless you have that condition, you just can't truly be in those person's shoes. And that's where a lot of the work I've been doing with GLO Lab in recent weeks and months, speaking to so many different patients across a number of different conditions, you really start to lean into sort of understanding some of the things that people have to kind of live with day by day, and the amazing role that cannabis-based medicinal products can really assist people.
You say this, Charlie, because many of the guests we have on Men's Radio Station on the other shows, and I can't believe this is week 28, Ollie.
Yeah, 28. Mental.
28,
no, you guys are rocking.
Fantastic. I'm so
Who'd
thrilled.
have thunk it?
Would
you give me 28 episodes, Charlie? You've met me before. Would you give me a radio show? I mean, Russ is a lunatic.
In a heartbeat, mate. In a heartbeat.
Yeah, you can say that now. It's very interesting, Charlie, because we have a lot of guests who come on and they describe their illness, and often we've never heard of it. It's incredibly rare. And then you start to dig down with them about what's going on, and it's heartbreaking, and B, you realize, of course, they're often on their own because the funding for it, because it's rare, isn't there, which is just a horrible catch-22 situation. Rett disease, Rett syndrome, prime example. They could cure it. It's only a question of money. So this is something I've got a big question for you of our guest, if I may, and it's this.
Sure, you can.
All the guests that Ollie has brought on have astounded me by being so smart, so articulate, so passionate, so knowledgeable, and very, very personal, without any exception. And that's all because of Ollie. It's nothing to do with me at all.
Or me.
And my question to our guest, Charlie, is this. What is it about this industry that seems to attract these very like-minded people? Because you don't all know each other, but you do have very similar traits.
Well, I think at the heart of it, there's the absolute, desire to help people. GLO, our mission is to help people live better. That's what we always say, and we're not here to say we can cure things, because that would be wrong. We're not here to kind of make definitive statements, but we do know that we can improve the quality of people's lives through the plant. And we know this from a number of different reasons, from a number of different people we've spoken to, from all of the research that's out there. And, Ollie will testify to this, and all of the other guests you've had on the show. And we can talk about some of that later. But, I think everyone, Russ, to come back, the connecting sort of ribbon that runs between, I think, all of these different people is that they're often touched, either themselves personally or by loved ones, friends, family, from some disease or life-changing event, whether that be like a cancer or something similar, that suddenly causes people to, for me, it was my father got cancer suddenly. He beat it. But you suddenly get into these positions where people are like, holy moly, I need to quickly do something radical to change the direction of what's going on with me at the moment. And unfortunately, that doesn't always work. But a lot of the time there is the opportunity to alter some sort of tragic or terrible news that people will receive with cannabis as a medicine. And, Ollie and I talked about this yesterday, actually. Like, I don't ever want to sit here and say this will cure that, but cannabis and all of its different compounds and components can provide an amazing tool in the box of tricks that people will go through to heal themselves from any number of conditions, whether that's a late stage HIV patient or right through to someone that's suffering with epilepsy or arthritis, whatever it may be. There's a whole host of different conditions that this is suitable for, but the ribbon that really connects all of the people that are trying to push this industry forward have a complete committed passion to helping people live better, happier lives through the application of cannabis-based medicinal products. I'm a huge believer. I know there's so many out there, but we have an immense mountain to climb in terms of education, transparency around the plant, the products, more research, learning, and the good people are trying to find each other, because undoubtedly with any industry that's forming in front of your eyes, you will have people that are trying to get into it for the wrong reasons or they're misaligned. But believe you me, we have met some of the most incredible people in this industry, whether they are patients, customers, business owners or people that are funding things, because a lot of the time the money side of stuff gets a negative perception, but I don't think that's right, because these people are investing personal money.
What do you mean by that, Charlie?
Yeah, so I want to add on to this. I'm going to let Charlie start, but this is something I also completely agree with, and I'm going to let I don't think we were going to get onto this point today, but it's very important. Just make that comment.
Well, I think it's the same for any industry. A lot of the time, people can speak ill of kind of investors and money and things like that. But ultimately, you need these people and organizations to be able to make great, amazing businesses come to life. What you're looking for is good people, good founding teams, and great talent that can really realize fantastic companies. And we always say at GLO, we're here to try and make an amazing company. And what does that mean? An amazing company is one that is mission driven. You know, we want to help people live better, happier lives. You know, we have values at the heart of our business that people can align with, because we want people to know what we're about. You know, we want to make an impact. Yeah, the byproduct of that is we will make money if we are true to our values and succeed. But we don't just wake up every morning saying we want to make money. We have had investment, which has given us the freedom to then execute our plan, which is to absolutely make an impact on culture, on society for the better, because that's what we're about. That's what we believe in. And there's lots of other good people in this business, in this industry, that have the same desires. But unfortunately, we all need a bit of money to get us going.
Of course.
The desire then is to sell and produce great quality products and services that really help people.
Let me make a little addition here. So yeah, so this animosity towards the money in this industry is the fact that when money comes in, is this belief that, you know, the energy and the power of this industry is being taken away from people who are the grassroots members. And in one respect, I do agree with that. I agree with it because when someone doesn't want to get into bed with someone who seems to be investing in their industry, they're going to run the other direction. But what happens when you run towards the investment? Because a lot of these investors, they actually want to invest in the right place in this industry. Now, the right place might be the person who's putting the fancy deck in front of them, or the right place might be an individual with a little bit too much sass like me. But it happens both ways. Now, I could very easily run away from investors. But if investors really want to invest in me, I'm going to jump at that opportunity, because it's only going to elevate me, and it's going to elevate the opportunities I can, you know, but it's going to elevate my opportunities in this industry, and it's going to elevate what I can actually do for the end users. You know, I got into this industry because I was in a place where I needed to help myself, and I want to help others the way I helped myself. The easiest way for me to do that is to get someone who's a multi-billionaire to be like, Ollie, you're now the biggest thing on the planet. Go and help people. Do you know what I mean? That would make it easier. But a lot of people would be like,
let me tell you, we'd like that on men's radio and women's radio as well.
Do you know what I mean?
If you're like squillionaire sitting in Silicon Valley, give us a call.
And it's important. And the fact of the matter is, so like I said, it's all about the end users. Now, the only way you really get through to all of the end users is by having a structure in place that enables you to do that. And all of these structures, they need money. You know, everything costs money. To change laws costs money. To influence a culture costs money. To create a revolution costs money. And the fact of the matter is that it needs to be adopted and needs to be almost accepted and not feared. Another thing is, I wanted to make a point on what Charlie was saying before. There's this sympathy versus empathy argument. You know, like, it's very easy to have sympathy for someone who's going through something. It's harder to have empathy. Empathy, you have to almost understand the experience the other person is going through in order to go through it. And I really do believe that Charlie has tried to make himself an empathetic business owner as opposed to a sympathetic business owner. He doesn't want to provide people products because he feels sorry for them. He wants to provide people products because they need it and they deserve it. And that comes with empathy and understanding. And I think that's very important as well. I wanted to throw that out there. All right, halfway through the show. Pretty fucking good show. Anyway, so I swore. I'm so bad. My first time in 26 weeks. Anyway, so let's carry on. I want to do this. Have you personally found active relief from cannabinoids in your past?
So, I mean, I'm a big CBD user. I like to, much like you actually, I have a big shot in the morning. I don't put it in my coffee like you do. I just have it neat. I still don't absolutely love the taste, but yeah, I'm.
The taste is horrible.
Yeah, it's not the best. So I'm
If it's
in,
like
I'm in
my
the morning.
sleeping drought, if it's like my sleeping stuff, it tastes vile.
Yeah, I have it in the morning and I have it in the night before I go to bed. And I'm a big fan of topicals. Like I'm quite hypermobile in my upper body, and as I've got older, I definitely I'm not onto the fibromyalgia kind of spectrum, but I definitely get a lot of injuries in my shoulders and in my elbow. I'm a bit sort of very flexible there, and sometimes can really overstretch. So I'm a big fan of topicals, just rubbing them in. And when I've been in the States, I've kind of explored different products there as well. So that's kind of my preferred what's in my bathroom cabinet, if you will, on a kind of day-to-day basis. So yeah, that's kind of my personal usage.
Have you thought about potentially going to get a prescription?
I have. I don't. Obviously, I've got a lot of friends, and I've spoken to a lot of people who have been through the clinics. The private route. We can kind of maybe touch on this. Is like I do feel that there's a kind of a lack of depth in the bench of products. Let's say, there's a varying degree of flour and oil available. I just haven't personally gone there because I'm not sure I'm quite oscillating onto the spectrum of really, really needing it from a prescription. The CBD products I use kind of work for me, but it's very interesting to see what's going on with the kind of clinics at the moment and how they're kind of serving patients. And there's a lot of kind of negativity that I see that patients are sort of experiencing, specifically around price. And if we go back to what we were talking about a minute ago, I think one of the feelings that we see a lot at the moment with the kind of more grassroots communities, or out of the 1.4 million sort of daily UK medicinal users from illicit sources, a huge proportion of those are going to be on kind of universal credit or lower socioeconomic sort of footprints or economic footprints. So the private clinics are, as we know, and I'm sure you've had this on previous shows, Ollie, like super expensive, probably about $5,000 a year for your appointments, your initial appointments, your follow-ups, your product, whether that be flour or oil.
See, we've only had the epileptic. So the only patients we've had, actually we've had two. We've had Tanine Montgomery, who came on and she explained she gets Bedrocan for her daughter. It costs her about £2,000 a month, which is like £24,000 a year, which is insane. She fundraises for that. And we also had Philip Anthony Bevington, the 80-year-old man who's been suffering from kidney failure, who got in trouble with the police, and now he's on prescription. And he actually said it's very affordable. But then also the product he takes a lot less than Tanine's daughter's taking. And also he's found a system that works for him. But he also said that he had to fundraise. It ended up being like £600-700 just to be able to get the prescription, which is quite expensive.
And this is a real bugbear for me. For those of you who didn't see that episode, which was an amazing episode, this is an 81-year-old man who'd been told that he had terminal kidney failure. And when he says to the doctor, which comes up to other questions we'd like to ask you, Charlie, he says to the doctor, well, I'm thinking of doing CBD. The doctor turns around and says, well, that's going to kill you. And he says, excuse me, 2 minutes ago, you just told me I was going to die.
Die anyway.
Well, I'm going to die anyway. What bloody difference? So he grows 6 plants. He's 81, all right? He's not, he's not some drug dealer. He's an 81-year-old man, very ill. He grows 6 little plants in his garage. He's minding his business. No, his neighbour dobs him into the police, and the police arrest him.
Yeah,
this is Russ, by the way. Russ is not pro cannabis, so the fact that he's doing, I love this. I love how angry he gets. I love what I've turned Russ into. I love what I've turned
him into. The point is, guys, I can't stand injustice, which is one of the reasons I wanted to co-found Men's Radio Station. And it makes no sense. The guy's doing no harm. He's 81. Let him have some dignity and some peace and some pain-free life. Come on.
I mean, it's amazing the amount of stories I've heard from all kind of different dimensions and stripes of people in society. The main themes that we see at the moment coming out, and I'll just rattle through these because they'll give us some good jumping off points. The big one is kind of, I don't want to be a criminal. I'm afraid. You've got people who have never bought drugs, don't ever want to break the law. but are suffering with a condition, and they are kind of forced into a corner of going, well, I can either be in massive pain, or I can do this and not enjoy it, but the output of what I get is something which makes me feel a hell of a lot better and lets me live my life in a better way. So that's a big theme. There's a huge kind of area around what's in my product. So the kind of traceability, transparency, what strain is it? How was it produced? How was it grown? When was it harvested? Like, what's it going to do to me? Is there any efficacy? Is there any data? Ollie,
Charlie, let me pause you for 1 second. Okay, it's very important. I want everyone to know this. So Charlie's actually been running interviews with patients over the last year or so. I actually did one with him last week. So all of this information he's rolling out to us, this is actually from the horse's mouth, So he's not just listing a bunch of random comments which he's listed on a piece of paper in order to sound smart. These are actual statements brought up by patients and end users out there. People like me who don't have the, you could call it,
gravitas.
That's it, the gravitas, who are actually terrified of the potential labels which might be put on them. I've already been labeled. I mean, there's not really much more anyone can do to me. I label myself. But the fact of the matter is, I understand if you've got some 65-year-old woman who's a grandma who's sitting there who doesn't want to be labeled as a stoner because she doesn't want her family labeling her as that, but this is actually her way out. I mean, like it's mind games. It's do I choose pain or do I choose image? Do you know? It's difficult. It's a very difficult game. Sorry, Charlie, carry on with your list.
No, it's fine. I'll get to this list. At one point, I just want a small build on what you're saying, Ollie. And I think this is where some of the kind of like animosity comes from, the sort of grassroots communities looking up at the sort of money that's tipping into the cannabis industry. There's very few businesses that as we understand it from speaking to a lot of patients, that are actually really, really doing the hard yards of getting down to the patient level and spending time, energy, and effort in really, really understanding what the unmet needs and the challenges that these people are facing day by day to try and access the plant as a medicine. We believe no British patient should struggle to access medicinal cannabis. It just shouldn't be the way.
So I'm with you.
Not in today's world. Not in today's world.
Exactly. So while I'm never going to sit here and say, we are selling products, so we are making money. And some people will always have a problem with that. But the reality is we're doing it by really, really, really listening. And we have a kind of, one of our core values is like never stop learning, which is basically we always want to be in discovery mode, whether we're 1 month old or 10 years old. I will always be talking to patients because we have a duty of care to really, really understand like what's going on out there on the front line in terms of people that are trying to access the plant. Now, obviously, as legislation changes and the stigma around the plant changes, we are going to see a big shift in the patterns of what's going on here. More research will pour in, education will improve, efficacy will be there, there'll be more transparency in what's going on, quality will go up, etc., etc. But if I'm not talking to patients, I'm not in this business. That is a failing of me as
Charlie,
a business owner.
can I jump in for can I just jump in for a second, because there's a big disconnect here, and you've mentioned it several times, and I just want to sort of come to your side, if I may. We've never met before this evening, and again, I apologize for the tech issues. You're saying, well, people don't like it because there's money involved. Jeez, go to the chemist. Go to the NHS, go to a private doctor. It's a fortune. There's always money involved. Pharmaceuticals is a gigantic industry. I'm not getting into whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. It doesn't matter. It's a huge industry, like the car industry, like the food industry. It's
but there is the fear. There's the fear that the money ends up, I want to call it, shadowing what's actually important. So does the money coming involved in this industry, if it's handled by the wrong people, so if the money is being invested in the wrong platform and the aim of the platform is just to generate more money and not to actually think about the end users, it can cause a little bit of disdain. But one thing I've seen about a lot of investors out there, if they have the opportunity to invest in something which is actually going to almost like impact investment, is actually going to have an impact and they get to make their return, that's what they want to see. That whole idea, if America has taught us anything, the bandwagon of percentage, of percentage gain, of investment for percentage gain in the cannabis industry is flawed. Every company in America who has built themselves up to increase their stock price, who have kind of built one of these structures which is built just to generate more value in its structure, they've all failed. You know, it's like when investment comes to grassroots and they come together and you've got an actual brain of hidden knowledge and you have an actual hedge fund of unmatchable power, then you get something special in this world. And I do believe that Charlie and his boys are going to do something like this because they're thinking about it right. You know, and it's important that the end users get thought about, because that's all they want. They just want a little bit of, you know, they just want to have a like 1% or 0.5% of your brain capacity focusing on them and 99.5% focusing on the business. But as long as there's a little bit of thought about the end user, they'll get helped. Now, I spoke to someone this week. She's actually a compliant agent for one of the one of these cannabis clinics in the UK, and she brought up something. She made a comment which has just triggered in my brain. So they follow NICE guidelines. However, if a doctor sees that he can actually make a physical change in a patient's life, apparently that's one of the NICE guidelines, that a doctor's allowed to use his initiative in order to make the patient's life better. It's not phrased like that. It's phrased in a different way. But, you know, basically the doctor has this ability to almost think outside of the box. Now, what I don't understand is, why is that not being applied? If the doctors have this ability to think outside the box and they have this ability to almost create bespoke products, why are they staying standard? And that's what I can't get my head around. If one of the guidelines is that the doctor is allowed to almost break the guideline, why is that not the rule which is being focused on more? Over the next few weeks, we're going to find out a lot. To be honest with you, we've got an incredible 10 weeks of episodes ahead of you. I'm really excited for all of our listeners. Sorry.
On that point, Ollie, one of the other big themes we see coming out of a lot of the patient stuff we've been doing is that, standard medicines aren't working. And that's very much connected to what you're saying about NICE. The concept of being pushed through all the nasties and the opioids and everything before you arrive at cannabis. Or a cannabis-based medicinal product. It baffles me because, I've sat with people and they've said, I went on to the benzos or take your pick of any one of those type of pills, and they're like, after 2 weeks, I was so fogged up, I couldn't function, right? So it is awful. And then you go back to taking something which has been able to, it grows in the ground. It's obviously non-comparable. So we see that as a huge theme. And I'll just whiz through some of the other stuff we're seeing as well, because we're obviously 20 minutes to go, and I do want to get into some of these predictions, Ollie. I promise you I would.
Oh no, please do. Please.
So other things quickly are like strains and the delivery mechanisms. Patients definitely want more information, more knowledge. Again, the private clinics, it's a selection of maybe 10 or 15 at any one time. I know Tilray have just brought some new stuff to the table, but there's very little data, and you don't get like a menu or things to choose from. It's very much sort of like, here's what you've got, I'm giving you this. Whereas, Ollie, we've talked about this before, the relationship between patient and clinician should be very much hand in hand. The journey you go on is a personal one. What you start with, the strain you take, the drops you have, the edible, whatever it may be, it may not be
as well. The dose or the construction of the product in order to create the right dose for you. Like we were talking yesterday about, about that patient who I spoke to, who her doctor said she needed 50 milligrams of THC. She couldn't take 50 milligrams of THC. She couldn't handle it. So her doctor created something with a 150 milligram CBD. 250 milligrams of THC, so she could have the pain relief from the THC, but the CBD counteracted the psychotropic effects of the THC, enabling her to actually enjoy her medicine more. It made the whole thing a lot more personal. It made that she could get on with her day. And little things like that are not hard to implement.
No, and that's where the kind of, I am always fascinated when I talk to patients, because you can sit in front of a doctor and you can have absolute complete respect for a doctor because they've gone and they've studied and they've dedicated their life to learning about the body. But no one is more of a master of your own body than yourself, right? Because you've lived with that your whole life, right? So if you just sit there and expect a doctor where there isn't enough education and they're quite risk averse about what they might prescribe, you need to be able to work hand in hand with your doctor or your clinician to say, this works, I feel this. And the other thing is as well, people do have to live their lives, Ollie, as you say. So I've been speaking to lots of people who are like, I can't take a THC heavy strain in the afternoon because I've got to work. So you might need something that's maybe more of a one-to-one or more balanced with some more CBD or something like this. And so there is a huge amount of work to be done there. But yeah, really a lot of people are saying more needs to be done around the education, the strains, the delivery mechanisms. We've touched on this. The private clinics are too expensive. They prohibit a lot of things. I really disagree with the idea of people having to pay 150 for an initial appointment or a consultation, then 3 follow-up appointments, which I understand is a duty of care for the clinic. Get that, but 90 quid plus. Again, when you're on low income, this is not right, and we've got to do something about that.
Access is not possible unless you've got a couple of grand in the bank recurring.
Exactly.
And then when you're talking about 700 quid, 800 quid a month for medicine on top of that, if that's what you actually need, because once you've started following the law, the one thing you don't want to do is follow the law half and break the law half, because then what's the point of following the law? You might as well just break it. So that whole idea, once you're in the door, if you want to turn around and walk right back out that door again, 700 quid out of pocket just with a new poster for your wall, which, to be honest with you, I really do want to get a prescription just to have a poster for my wall. I know I just made a flippant comment there, but it'll be really, really cool. Not worth 800 quid, but it's definitely worth like 50.
What's the poster?
You know what I mean? Well, the poster, you are allowed to legally smoke cannabis and stick it on my wall like a diploma. Do you know what I mean? Like a poster for my wall.
You'd have made it then, Ollie.
There we go. I would have made it. That's it. That's success.
I love the goals we have in life. Honestly, to get a poster.
Let me
which says
rattle
I'm
through.
legally allowed to smoke cannabis in the UK.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a quick question.
A couple of other ones, Ollie. Let me
Charlie,
just give you these last.
Fine.
I just want to give you the last of the couple of ones, because then we kind of close it off. So I think the service is really good from the dealer at the moment. So the clinics are way behind. Like, they don't have as good product. They don't have as much choice. They don't give you a cup of tea when you turn up. There is a lot of the choice is limited, and we're seeing a lot of people that are saying, I'm very comfortable growing something for myself, whether that be X, Y, or Z strain, but I would still like the ability to choose other strains. It's that kind of dispensary model. So if I can grow Bruce Banner really well, but I love Skittles, I would love to be able to buy that from somewhere else. So there's this kind of interesting kind of tapestry forming about how people would like to.
Let me just touch in there. Different strains, everyone listening, different strains have different effects. So, for example, a Skittles would be like a 50-50 indica sativa, so I'll have a bit more of a, it's quite a balanced sort of high. It's not too lethargic and it's not too rushy and uplifting. I think a Bruce Banner is like a, what's a Bruce Banner? What's the genetics behind that?
More on the indica, nuclear blast, and then you turn green.
More on the indica side, I assume, based on the name of it, and it'll be more of a subduing, more of a heavy hitting cannabis medication. Now, depending on what you need a strain for, you're using a strain for arthritis, you're using a strain for Lyme disease, you're using a strain for narcolepsy. You know what I mean? They're 3 completely different conditions, all of which need 3 completely different effects and probably 3 completely different delivery methods. Now, if you're going to a clinic who's going, I'm not saying they do, but if you're going to a clinic who's going to basically just give you one option for all, it doesn't really give you much of an edge. Also, as we've heard many times, like even Dr. Barron said in one of our first episodes, cannabis is one of those only medications where the patient comes to the doctor and says, I know more about this than you. So listen to me. Do you know what I mean? And Dr. Barron said he's heard it over and over again from patients out there who are like, I don't know why my doctor won't just listen to me. I know what I need, okay, but they can't get it for me. And it's this incredible, it's this incredible sort of, what's the word? Like a contradiction. It's an incredible contradiction because, you've got a specialist who knows less than the person who's going to see that specialist.
Very weird.
Yeah, and that's why I keep coming back to no one knows your own body like you. And if you've been a consumer of the plant and you're saying, this is what's working for me, it's quite dangerous to strain switch anyway, especially if you're talking about some of the epilepsy stuff, you need to keep on that track. And that's why obviously with what happened with Brexit, it became very problematic for a lot of people. So, they're all important things. And
Charlie, can I just jump in with a tiny bit of housekeeping? I do apologize to all the listeners all over the world and the viewers. I normally go through and say hello to people and ask their questions. I haven't got it up because of malfunction. I'm having to use my phone. The image looks all right, but I can't see your comments. So I'm not ignoring you. My apologies. I just can't see your comments on this particular episode. We'll get it right for future episodes.
So Charlie, we have 10 minutes left. I've got 10 different questions. So I'm going to ask you which one you want to talk about. So do you want to talk about the change in healthcare, how it's going through modernization, the fundamental responsibility to end users, understanding application technologies, discussion around new smart tech, or basically
I think we should do the predictions, Ollie.
Fine, let's do that then.
You know,
so
because
I like
basically,
the sound of that.
so yeah, go on. Let's do that then. That's right here at the bottom.
I think
so,
what we talked about was
I've got a
the
statement
European
which
market.
works for it. Exactly.
Go
The
for
European
it.
cannabis industry is new. There's no right or wrong way to adapt to it and to build on it. Every international-based medicinal cannabis system was designed with its own foundation. Every single one is different. So you've got Israel and America and Europe. They all operate in very different ways, as I mentioned before. What are your predictions for the UK market? All right, there we go. This is fun. What are your predictions for the UK market? What do you think is going to happen over the next 5 years? And what we're going to do, for every one you get right, I owe you a tenner. For every one you get wrong, you owe me 100 quid.
I lost the tenner the other day. Be very
I've got like 15 here. So, okay, so listen, let's rattle through these. I thought about it earlier because obviously, you know, we believe Europe's going to be the biggest market in the next 5 years. There's 750 million people or just below that here, and you know there's obviously already a pretty established culture. So I think there's going to be technology is going to play a really big role. I think there's going to be an amazing amount of startups forming around the cannabis industry. So we're going to have obviously the big cultivators and all the rest of it, but I think there's going to be an amazing amount of, much like the way Airbnb disrupted travel. When Airbnb disrupted travel, what happened was there was a whole suite of new businesses which sort of formed around Airbnb,
like property tech.
Exactly.
Yeah,
like
it's incredible. Some of this prop tech is incredible. I mean, like just it's blowing my mind, man. Like literally blowing my mind.
Yeah, that ranges from, you know, managed services through to specific locks for, you know, people that are never actually in the Airbnb. The same thing.
Key cards which are on you. So like they now do the thing like, you know, when you go to a hotel and they give you a card, so that they've built in a system so you get that card onto your phone, you swipe your phone in front of the lock and you can get into your Airbnb. So you never have to worry about a tenant stealing your key ever again.
Exactly. So
like crazy,
there's going to be loads of stuff coming up in cannabis. Excellent. Things like, you know, there's a company called Mode, which is exciting, which is a sort of a digital device which basically attaches to a vape cartridge which delivers a metered dose. So like this is the whole thing. It's like if you're not vaping for a recreational or a pleasure or as a social lubricant, you're taking it as a medicine. But if you're taking it for a medicine, you need to know what you're actually putting into your lungs. Companies like Mode, which is, I think they launched their product this summer. You know, that's going to be exciting. There's going to be lots and lots of stuff like that. So I think my first prediction is technology is going to play a big hand. There's going to be a huge startup scene like forming in and around the cannabis industry.
Not really a prediction.
Beyond what
that's kind of that's pretty obvious. I mean, like a prediction's like
Ollie, predictions go on the scale of like,
don't upset the guest.
Yeah, right. So I think there's going to be a whole load of research coming in as well. I think this has been one of the really big things is that, you know, companies at the moment really are kind of, you know, more on the kind of research sort of pharma end of stuff. You know, if you look at one end, it's the sort of GW side, which is a different business to sort of GLO and a lot of the others, but right through to then, you know, the kind of the more marketing focused CBD stuff. So there's going to be a bit of a split between, are you going very much kind of research led, or are you going much more brand and you want to fight to get shelf space and be the product of choice in the gym bag, the makeup bag, the bathroom cabinet. So there's going to be a bit of a like split, I think, between, are you going to be very much more down the research, pharmaceutical road, or the kind of brand-led marketing, appealing to the hearts and minds. And I think GLO is probably going to be somewhere in the middle, but there's definitely going to be this kind of divide and more companies are going to come in. The biggest cannabis companies in Europe haven't been born yet. I think that's one that I believe will be true.
I've got another one to add. Okay, so fine, and you guys are actually safe because you guys are not functioning yet. Okay, as in you guys are not like there yet. I personally believe that every cannabis company who we hold close to our hearts today will not be here in 5 years' time.
Could be
like not one of
the other week. This is
there's
isn't it?
That's the prediction. That is the prediction.
Okay, I mean, you blow my mind, Ollie.
I'm difficult.
The language of cannabis is going to become a well-spoken dialect. And what I mean by this is, coffee is probably the most comparable example, where if you go back to sort of, decades ago, it was a black filter drip coffee, or maybe it's an espresso. But these days, whether you like Starbucks or not, and I'm absolutely no fan, what they did was they kind of almost like taught people how to like speak coffee. It's certainly in the States. And I think, Ollie, we've spoken about this before, terpenes, cannabinoids, flavonoids, all of the different language around cannabis is going to become a lot more universal, as people really, really understand what they mean, and they really kind of bone up and learn about that. So the language of
you
cannabis.
Want to write a dictionary with me, Charlie?
I'm very happy to do that, mate.
Dictionary.
I'm happy to do that. That's another one. What else did I have? We've only got a few minutes left.
The ABC of dictionaries.
Yeah, they're about to say, screw Oxford and Cambridge. We're going to own this one, okay? We are going to own this one. The Oxford, so the Cambridge Dictionary or the Oxford Dictionary was actually written in Mill Hill, where I live. So not in my house, but in the area within like half a mile. So I actually do believe that Mill Hill is very good at producing dictionaries. I think we should do this, Charlie.
I'm up for it.
I'm really up for it.
I think, more and more products. I think it's going to be really, really exciting in the development of more beverages, more stuff for pets. The delivery mechanisms are going to become more exciting, because if you think about it, we know this: alcohol, one delivery mechanism, one outcome, you get drunk. Cannabis is going to have, we've already got multiple delivery mechanisms: vape, patch, topical, tinctures, all the rest of it. We're going to see more and more of this. And I think also, we have to look at what's happening with the sort of millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha coming, anyone born after 2010. They don't drink much. Alcohol is going to sort of fade away in favor of things like, cannabis. And it might be that we're taking a specific edible because we're going to watch a funny film, and that specific edible is going to make us laugh for a couple of hours with no hangover or no nasty side effects. So we're going to get that very targeted delivery mechanism with specific effects to deliver specific experiences for people. And I think that's going to be a really exciting.
I have another prediction to add to this game.
That's extraordinary.
I told you like this game.
What you just said is extraordinary.
I have one more prediction to add to this game. So I was speaking to a buddy last week. I think I brought this up on the show already. There are predictions by a lot of these big cannabis investment funds that THC-free cannabis is going to be the most profitable strains. They're going to create cannabises which don't get you high. So like a strain of so they think CBD flowers, CBG flowers, CBN flowers, etc. are all going to be 10 times more dominant in the marketplace than THC flowers as we know them today.
Yeah. Maybe my last prediction, because there's only a couple of minutes left, is I just think we're going to see, so as the stigma fades, which is happening kind of, pretty rapidly at the moment, a much more diverse range of customers. We always laugh at GLO that like our best kind of brand ambassador would be Dame Helen Mirren, because there's so many sort of different age groups and men and women, all kind of finding the plant for all kinds of different reasons. But all of that diversity of customer will only come with more education and more transparency around what is the product. And that is where we're just, laser focused in our mission to just make elite grade products at the right price and democratize it so that people that need them can get them to help them live better lives. And that's what we're all about.
It's exactly what it's all about.
I think it's all about that.
I just want to say something to you, Charlie, and I just want to pitch this. 28 weeks ago, I've never met Ollie. We've never met face to face. We have spoken for weeks. Literally, but we've never actually met in person, which is something which we're going to sort out. But
I'm not real. It's virtual reality.
I think you're a little anime from Tokyo. 28 weeks ago, I knew nothing about this industry whatsoever, and it has been one of the most interesting experiences of my life. A whole new thing, and it's all down to Ollie finding these people like yourself, such erudite, articulate guests. You've converted me. You've converted our listeners from all over the world who are saying, I've got this, I've got that. So speak to Ollie. Don't speak to me. He's the expert. They're sleeping better. The rashes are gone. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I just want to say a big thank you on behalf of Men's Radio Station to
My
you
pleasure.
for coming on, for you for supporting Ollie and agreeing to be a guest. I don't take it lightly. You're busy people, and it really has been terrific. Sorry, last words to you two.
Yeah, I'm
was
delighted to have been on. I mean, thank you very much, Russ. Much like you, I'm a student of the plant. Alex and Charlie, my other co-founders, much more knowledgeable, but I learn every day. And as I said earlier, one of our core values is to never stop learning, because we've got so much to understand yet about this plant, about what it can do, and about how we can harness its power. So I'm loving the journey, and it's been a pleasure to talk with you both today. And Ollie, let's write that dictionary.
1,000,000%.
All the people like yourself, Charlie, in the last 20 seconds, all the people like yourself, if you can demystify it and stop being demonized and look at the beneficial things, it'll probably be a much better world. My big thanks to you, as ever. Thanks to the extraordinary Ollie Mammon, who blows me away every single week. Until next week, bye, everybody. Take care.